All right. Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome to Riverfront Readings tonight, featuring Bettis, Fogle and Polly Alice McCann. Couple of preliminaries. I'd like to ask those of you who aren't in the spotlight to please mute yourselves if you haven't already. Also want to let you know that this reading is being recorded and the video will be posted to our YouTube channel after I've done some editing to it. We won't really have a break, but in between the readers, I will make a couple of announcements. All right, our first reader is Ida Bettis Fogle. She grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, a city she will always love. For the past quarter century, she's made her home in Columbia, Missouri. She's been writing poetry since childhood. In 2019, she completed the goal of reading every work of William Shakespeare. Ida's poems, stories, and essays have appeared in a variety of publications, including Thema, Well Versed, Eternal as a Weed, Tales of Ozark Experience, and Boundless, an anthology of prose. She always has too many works in progress and has recently finished the first draft of a novel. Blog sporadically at nomadicnoesis.blog. I'll drop that into the chat. Now, please welcome Ida Bettis Fogle.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank the Riverfront Readings for giving me this opportunity. Also, I wrote that bio a long time ago when I was going to be reading much earlier in the year, so I didn't mention I do have an ebook of poetry that's been published this year on Smashwords. It's called Past Life, if anyone wants to look that up. It's available on Smashwords and Barnes & Noble. You might want to do a search by my name rather than the title, because I found out it's a very popular title for books. So a few of my poems will be from that and some won't. I'm starting my timer so I don't go over. My first poem is the title poem from that book, Past Life. I present the photos as proof. My children should know I have lived a life other than toothbrush nag, peeler of potatoes, bedsheet folder. Look, the young woman there, with thin muscular legs, her bike propped next to her. She would see bears later that day, and you would not exist had she not been downwind. She pedaled 80 miles a day for those 2 weeks. Yes, she was strong. She slept in cornfields and outraced a rabid dog on the same trip. Where is she now? Still here, somewhere. My second poem is called Don't Tell the Redbud. And I want to mention that the Columbia, where I live, has a very good mayor right now. I wrote this several years ago. This is not about our current mayor. Don't tell the redbud in my yard about the new mayor. Let it bloom its clustered, tiny magenta petals, 12 to a fingertip, in its own minuscule piece. Close the window framing it to block the sound, if you even whisper about the likely fate of its cousins who reside in developable spots around town. The redbud asks only for a modicum of space to display its once-a-year beauty. It does not predate or crowd or overshadow. It is a coexister. Hide from it the news photos of the incoming leader, bulldozers glinting in his eyes. The tree need not know those machines will be at work soon enough plowing under its kin, or that maybe in a year or 2 years, they could be here digging at its own roots in the name of traffic flow. Today, it has a place to bloom. For now, let it have its own modest serenity. And getting into a different season, this one is called Monument. A monument to winter, the jagged snow fort, walls as tall as the 8-year-old who sculpted the blocks, lifting each into place, laboring with hard determination, foregoing rest and apple cider. He could be building the pyramids. He mourns the growing warmth of the sun. He wants his work to endure in measure to his devotion, kin to the Bamayan Buddhas for ages. He's heavy with the tension between attachment and impermanence. 15 hours, 15 centuries, neither is forever. But there will be other statues, sages, winters, snows, boys. Perfect autumn day. So you ever got an autumn and there's just everything is perfect. The weather's perfect. The sunlight's perfect. The colors are perfect. Perfect autumn day. This is the kind of day they turn into jigsaw puzzles, with many subtle shades of blue interlocking for the sky. Autumn to thank for the palette spreading out beneath the azure canopy. Is that red piece part of the tree or its reflection in the lake? Look at this one where the bronze and green meet. Its place is obvious. You want to frame it a day like this, so beautifully put together. This next one's short, and I have read it to my husband. He's okay with me reading it because he's mentioned in it. It's called Relativity in Arizona. Einstein is proved right on a desert highway. Time moves backward if you travel quickly enough. 80 miles per hour, and my husband is 23 years old again. And while we have a little science theme in that one, I'll go with one called red shifting. This is about light and how it goes into the red spectrum as it travels. Light changes with movement, waves stretch, shifting, the glow of a distant star red from the effects of travel. Red light has seen some stuff on its way across the universe. Light ages. Red light means old light. I'm stretched now too. My curves not as tight as they once were. Oh, how far I've come. You should have seen me at the beginning of my journey, a bright white blaze. And this next one is a shorter trip than across the universe. The wedding I drove hundreds of miles to attend. I have forgotten every detail. Bridesmaids and groomsmen, colors and flowers, even the place. A church seems most likely. Who sat beside me? What was the music? The usual, probably. I can almost recall the make of the bridal gown that was shown to me in advance, abundant with lace, or beading, perhaps it had so much of. Only the travel there and then back is vivid still, and the words on the phone. Your grandmother died. Hurry on home. 7 long hours behind the immense steering wheel of an ancient Buick, while fighting off the approach of sleep and of tears through night and construction. Thinking about it, scenes from the couple's evening reception surface, at least a few, though they're blurry, eating and crowds. The wedding was large, I guess, and expensive. That sounds about right. I have a couple here about Missouri now. I think everyone here is, or maybe not everyone, but most people here are pretty familiar with Missouri and its many caves. This one is called Onondaga Cave. The race is indeed not to the swift and is not a race. Today we like speed, the whole world in an instant with a keystroke. Third graders do 100 addition problems in 5 minutes. Speed proves competence. Service so quick you'll quake or something like that. Nobody should wait. The gravest sin is to slow others down. That's above ground. Enter this cave and the standards invert. Muse upon the mighty stalagmites. Take in the tightly clinging stalactites. Marvel at the pace of growth, an inch per 100 years. 1 inch per 100 years. That's where the awe comes in. If they formed at a fast clip, we'd chop them out, carry them off, stack them in our garages, intending to use them in a craft someday. There would be no sense of wonder. The slowness makes it so. Speed wins the day, persistence, the millennia. And this next one I wrote after touring the Missouri Penitentiary, the old Missouri Penitentiary in Jefferson City, about 30 miles south of here. It was one of the oldest state penitentiaries west of the Mississippi. Touring the historic Missouri Penitentiary. We used to say tools, some still say fire. Language went out the window with Coco the gorilla. Swans mate for life, and so do prairie voles. Jane Goodall saw chimps engage in a war. Violence and love and care for our young, none of these sets human apart. But after touring the bloodiest 47 acres with its cells too small for the number crammed in, and its actual dungeon where men went blind for lack of light, I could think of not another animal that keeps its fellows captives in such conditions for so many years. So maybe we are unique. That was the grimmest one I'm going to read. They're not all going to be that dark here on out. I have one about Helen Keller after watching an old newsreel footage of her and Anne Sullivan demonstrating how she learned to talk. Helen's teacher. There they sit in the newsreel, Helen Keller smiling, self-possessed, radiant even, hardly evoking thoughts of darkness, with teacher's arm around her, the posture proclaiming not protection, but unity, oneness. Her arm around Helen saying, look at the two of us together. See what we can accomplish. Anne speaks, and then Helen. They show the process by which she learned. Finger on teacher's larynx, another on lips, another on nose. Feeling the vibrations, learning to mimic, feeling the love and the patience. You can see it clearly. Couldn't we all use an Anne Sullivan? Someone to believe in us, someone to interpret the world, help us understand, lead us to our voices. And I have a little introductory information for this one. It's titled For Catherine Switzer, April 17th, 2017. For anyone who doesn't know, Catherine Switzer was the first woman to run in the Boston Marathon, and she registered using her initials. When a race official saw that a woman was running, he actually went onto the course and tried to pull her off. So for Catherine Switzer, April 17th, 2017. What did they think would happen in 1967 if a woman ran? Would we all be deprived of the cake she should have been baking instead? Would the race be sullied, the stain forever wringing its collar? Or grimmest of all, the boys would have to share, not only that day, but all the days to come. Well, worst came to worst, and she ran again in Boston today with thousands of women on the course. While somewhere, surely, some man baked a cake, the downfall of civilization complete. And since I mentioned cake in that one, I will move on to food poems. I love me a good grilled cheese. It's my go-to comfort food. I would love it so much I wrote it a poem. Ode to a grilled cheese sandwich. Comfort on a griddle, that's what grilled cheese is. Golden toasted warmth, full of the forbidden things that make you feel so good. Salt and butter and fat. It's solace that sticks to your ribs. The next best thing to a hug from your grandmother. A grilled cheese sandwich is the stolid best friend of the food world, securely there, always unchanging. Sometimes this bare thought is enough to get me through the day. I could have a grilled cheese later if I feel the need. And then I have one with the line from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam that everyone knows: a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou. This one is called No Loaf. No wine, no loaf, no you. Any one of the three would help me forget the other two. Only late night TV, stale chips, and a soda diet in a dinky motel room in a tiny town where nothing's open past 8 at night. I put my phone down, giving your voicemail no reply, wondering where you are and who might be with you and why, and if it has to do with food or drink or love, unsure which I'd be most jealous of. I just have two more. This one is apropos of Thanksgiving coming up. You know how when you have any kind of big dinner, especially if several people are contributing, but there's like one person who can't get there, they have to work or something. So you put a plate aside for them, make sure they get some. This one's called I Made You a Plate. I made you a plate, so much better than vibrating the air with the voice sounds of I love you. I made you a plate. I thought of you, specifically you. I think of you even when you are not in the room. I made you a plate. I saw you hungry and fed you. I saw you unable to join and wanted you not to be lonely. I made you a plate. Even if you can't participate at the specified time and place, you are still in community. I made you a plate. I do not take you for granted, nor the task you are doing that keeps you from the feast. I made you a plate. In assembling the food, I recalled noticing your likes and dislikes. I care for your comfort, your happiness. I made you a plate. I brought you a piece of love from each person who cooked and shared. You are not abandoned. What greater love is there than this? I had your back. I made you a plate. And my final one, now I want to dedicate, this is called Thanking the Writers, and I want to thank all the writers here, including the writers with the writers I mentioned in this poem. Thanking the writers. I thank Mark Twain for letting me know it was an option to choose hell over an unjust God, and the difference wouldn't be so great. I thank Louise Fitzhugh for showing me there's no such thing as a normal life, there's simply life. I thank Harper Lee for motivating me to do right because it's the right thing to do, even when I can't win. I thank Ursula K. Le Guin for expanding my mind again and again, for the what ifs that lead me through time. I thank you all for building a refuge I can take with me, a soul spa, a university, a universe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. That was terrific. So I have a couple of announcements, as I said. Let me pull them up here on my computer. First of all, a week from tonight, on November 20th at 7 p.m., the Writer's Space Reading Series features Judith Fertig, Matt Lawson, and Ruth Williams. And I will drop in the chat where you can find details on that. The next Riverfront reading will be Friday, December 4th, and will feature Denise Lowe and Susan Whitmore. That's the first Friday of the month instead of our usual second Friday. I'll also put the link to register for the Zoom reading in the chat. And on Sunday, December 13th, Riverfront Readings will host our annual holiday open mic, again on Zoom. Details for that will soon be on our website and on our Facebook page. Let me copy all of that and drop it into the chat here. And now I will turn things over to James Binger.
All right, here I am. I'm just going to read Polly's bio and let her take over because that's what I'm going to do. Polly Alice McCann, poet, artist, dreamer, began writing poetry after a cold winter night in the desert with only a book for her pillow. She studied poetry under Julia Kosdorf and Christine Perrin at Messiah College, where she received her BA in studio art. After her MFA in writing from Hamline University in St. Paul, with an emphasis in poetry and short fiction, her poetry was published internationally in journals such as Naugatuck River and Arc 24 in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. Polly's art has also been published in U.S. newspapers and magazines, most recently in Rattle magazine. An adjunct writing professor and creative consultant at pollymccann.com, she is also the founder and manager of Flying Ketchup Press. She credits much of her creative work to her research on dreams and the subconscious writing process, which won her the 2014 Ernest Hartman Award from Berkeley, California. Find her books of narrative free verse, Kin Light, Tea with Alice, and Puss in Boots online. Her art has been published in U.S. newspapers and magazines and is showing internationally. She says her favorite thing is to tell stories, other people's, her own, or maybe yours. Everyone, Polly Alice McCann.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, thanks, James. All right, well, cool. This is really wonderful to meet you all. And I know I really enjoyed Ida's poetry, and I really like what she said about leading us to our voices. So I know the Riverfront Reading Series is one of the things that's led me to keep writing poetry, and some of the people here have done that too tonight. So I'm going to read a couple poems from my newest book and some of my older works, because when I sat down to get ready to prepare everything, I decided to just scrap my plan and read some of my older poems that I thought you might like, because I started thinking about my grandpa, and some of my first poems were about him. And like James said, when I'm not writing poetry, I do art and teach and stuff like that. But I think that bio is like 4 of my bios stuck together. It's so long. All right. So this is one of my first poems. I thought I'd just start with the old ones so we could get to know each other, since I don't know everyone here. I'm just going to read right out of the book. This one's called Gazing at the Wind Wisps. Tornadoes of blackbirds twist down to purple clay, touching bare fields of paper stalks. Kansas dirt, in my memory, is always brown. Brown like Grandpa's garden, about the size of a card table. A Southern Baptist preacher, he would have never played cards, but he must have planted strawberries, because I was delighted to swallow their bitter descendants for summers afterwards. The night my mother drove to Harrisburg to find me, she made me dig up dirt with an old lunch spoon from her car. In the night's stealth, I unburied some soil into a juice bottle. Grandpa wanted to be buried in Pennsylvania soil, she said, so we would bury some with him. Now he walks among strawberries, the likes I've never seen. Thanks. All right. Okay, let's try another one. Do you want another one about my grandpa? I got one more. Okay, he's pretty amazing. All right. So I started writing poetry in college, and so these are really old from way back then. This is called Bath Lady. The bath lady comes every Thursday, her teeth whiter than the porcelain tub, which spews water through its nostrils like the gargoyles on the plaza, its water bubbling into the cauldron of my bath. In the papered bedroom, my left claw stays my chest, my good hand begins the top button. The bath lady brings out a towel and asks, "How you been?" I take my pen protector out of my pocket, nail clippers, a toothpick, magnifying glass, handkerchief, and the floss I'm saving to use for after lunch. Fine, just fine, I answer when I think of it, but she's gone to check the water. Once my shirt is undone, I unbutton my trousers. They sink to my ankles like a dark life preserver deflated on a deck. The bath lady handles the rest. Socks, slippers, robe, each of us in our own minds alone. Once my robe is gone and I'm lowered into the tub, I'm 2 years old again. I sink down into the old wash tub on the farm. My mother comes. She rubs my back with warm water and a flannel rag. In this safe oval, I'm a new babe. My mother died before I learned to speak her name. I don't remember her face, but I can smell lavender water when I say her name silently to myself. "What was that?" asked the bath lady. "Nothing," I answer. I'm done. The cold air ages me 80 years. The green bar of soap glistens as the last dregs of water drained from the tub until it's empty. I am undone. The bath lady dries me with a bleached towel. Somehow she knows to leave my tears to dry on their own. Thanks. Now that one I made up, completely made up. My grandmother just told me that the bath lady had come over the phone. So I just imagined it. Sometimes I think poets do that. We make up things that we feel like really happened. And so sometimes I tell people that I write narrative poetry. That's mostly true. This one, next one is going to be the last one about my grandpa. His name was George Hickson. I don't know if anybody knew him, but this one is totally made up, and it's a It's a fantasy of the future. It's called Last Farm Food Revolution. And it fits with the season right now. My people were farmers, though I've never seen their land. What did they say about it? They didn't even leave me a note. What's in this crinkled manila envelope? Among the gourd and corn seeds, a little vial with a metal cap. In Grandpa's lettering, it says, pumpkins, pumpkin seeds, 1960. I wish there were a message for me in here, that it said something like, something I could stand on. Stick to the land, be strong in the faith, hold close to your family. I throw the seeds out the window. Before I was born, we lost the last farm. One farm was lost to the tarmac, another to the court. Forced to sell and divide the sum, brother and sister never spoke again. All I have left of them is this quilt. Its blue hubbed wheels spin on a pink world, but there's no words for me. No message from the past. Here in this future we call now, we've all wheeled down different walks to the landless place, one where my garden produces small, bitter fruit. Someday, when people learn to fly without planes, that old tarmac's gonna crumble. Grass will push right through where 10-ton airplanes couldn't make a dent. And out of that crack will sprout a vine from an old pumpkin seed, non-GMO, with 500 years of stored energy. It will grow the biggest, largest pumpkin this world has ever seen. And all the kids will come. They'll hum out on their solar-powered hoverboards to see it. What? I'll be like 406. It'll be the first vegetable my great-great-grandkids have ever seen, still on the vine. Of course, we'll slice it open, and inside will be enough pure pumpkin seeds to populate whole continents. Then, when we're preparing to cook enough pie to reinvent Thanksgiving, we will find a tiny, hardly noticeable message, and it's carved on each seed. This was not the last farm. Start again. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. Carry on. Love, Grandpa. All right, cool. Well, so those are some of the poems that got me started. I started with a poem a day poetry blog, and then I met James and started working on his Facebook page. So that has been really awesome to have a group of poets that like to write often to talk to online. And they have a book that just came out called 365 Day Poems. So I wanted to read to you a poem from that book that just came out this year. I ordered it and I wanted to show it to you, but it didn't come in the mail in time, so I'm going to read it to you. So this is a more recent poem. All right. Okay, so this one's called Bridge Dance. And I wanted to dedicate this poetry reading to my brother. He's been stuck in the hospital for the last year. Because of COVID, he can't really leave. And so I wrote this about visiting him. Bridge Dance. I was at the psychology conference. The man at the front of the audience was tall, with a bland necktie, but he fluttered around with excitement. A new therapy held out like gold coins. Holds the recovery rates as high as 90%, he said, in vets with post-traumatic stress. eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It involves REM, he explained, and a screen with words. The patient is given a sentence and he's asked to create a metaphor or a simile. Today is like a fresh field in spring, full of new growth, with a few cesspools of evolutionary slime thrown in. A half-dead snail hiding in his shell, a walk over the barreling bridge with a bragging stream. At the conference, I overhear two psychologists talking about people overcoming terrible post-traumatic stress. Every time they tried to recover, they'd be hit by another anniversary full of pain. What do you advise them to do? I asked, pretending that I was asking for a patient. Honor the event, they both said. Turn around, make new anniversaries, they agreed in unison. Commemorate, rotate the axis on its universe to arrive in a different galaxy. Use different stars, different constellations. Today is like a cardinal, incessantly nagging about the number of eggs he is hoping to hide in another bird's nest. A math problem that will keep going on when the answer is an even number. I assume from my ignorance that rapid eye movement is like dreaming, and that this writing thing is like poetry. The writing is like mending a hole or hemming a pair of pants, things that will be a bit smoother, fit better, after you struggle with naming them, naming things that are alike. April is like the quiche I made today, because it is first too damp, and then when cold, a bit disappointing. Legal documents are white sheets of paper with vast words of inside-out galaxy. The stars are black letters that threaten to lose their temperature with too much pouring over them. The jobs I wish I could do are a valley of rocks, no bridge in sight, just an invisible one that I have to cross. The visit to the hospital is a horror movie. I watch with my eyes closed. My walk through the security is like sleep. The buzzer is for my shoes, which have metal. The buzzer's warning me that I'll come in strong and go out weak. The music in the hospital's country and patients are sitting out in the sun. The words we say to each other are like wild rose bushes along the path, barely recognizable from the harsh winter, with staffs of thorns and a haze of green imagination. My mother is like a peanut butter cookie. She's sometimes perfect, sometimes sweet, sometimes too salty. But when she's just right, she's worth more than all the money in the world. My mother may not have much history to say, but when she speaks, the present rolls out like a smooth road that you could build a castle on. She sits on a throne and predicts a good future while the dogs sit by her feet. Tame lions proud as gold rings. My kids who hug me and say they love me are stars too bright to look at, too far away for me to understand. Part of a nebula of a picture of the future that my telescope cannot see. Their hugs are like tight kite strings, and I know I can only hold on to them as long as the wind holds out. My grasp over this day is like a lost cat. Sometimes I hear it meowing, but when I go look, he isn't there because he left years ago. The poems I write today are like the shoes that I wear to cross the bridge. It reverberates like a gong, a wood instrument under my little Dutch clogs. And when I am dancing, I am okay. And when I am dancing the bridge dance, I am okay. Okay, so that's a pretty deep one. It's so long. Let's see. That's the only one that's not in my new book, which I have here for us. Let's see. It's called Puss in Boots. And it's maybe not spelled right because Boots is a constellation, and I don't even think you pronounce it that way. So I've got a couple from that one I want to share with you. And let's make sure. Since I threw out my plan, I have to kind of pull some of these out of the books. Okay. All right, I've got one more old one before I switch to the new ones. Looks like we got time, right? We're doing good on time. Seed of Fire. In the cool garage, under the high windows glare, I pull out peppery black seeds from paper pips. Thin black lashes rimmed in terracotta. There are mounds of them, marigolds. They sift through my fingers like ashes. Their scent rises like smoke, a sweet trust to their former sentient glow. In spring they sprung from a single pungent package, a ring of marigolds to protect my hopes. Just a row or two around the runners so I could make a pot of beans like grandma's. Summer proved short. Short beans won't climb a pole. Abandoned by fire, her shutters thrown to the ground. The house, a dead bird with one eye plucked out. In autumn, the garden greets us, a wild thing, with cucumbers the size of my arm, marigolds profusely plump, enough for a jack to climb, burn like fireworks from fertile vines, blooms of red and yellow colors, a garden on fire. Our old key quivers in the lock. The door opens. It's winter. Baby and I trample cold leaves and mud. I tug on old marigold bushes. I tug them out by her roots. Swinging the reliquary bramble of incense, a sweet threshing of heads. Confetti fills the air. Seeds stuck to my red wool coat, seeds in our hair and on our faces, seeds over the whole garden, seeds of hope and flame, seeds of survival power, seeds for every lost hour. Thanks. Let's see, we'll skip that one. Okay. Okay, so now I'm skipping over to the new book. What I've been doing since I wrote this book, finished it in April, I got to do a writers in residence at Steele's Used Books. And I was talking to Maria Boyd from Art Speak Radio, and she said, is anything coming up with you? And I said, oh yes, I finished a book and I'm ready to be on the radio. And she said, okay. And I was thinking, she'd say May or June, and she said, how about April? And I was thinking she'd say like maybe the end of April. And she said the beginning of April. Well, I didn't have the book done. I was just making that up. I had to write a book in 30 days. I had to go on a writer's retreat to Plattsburgh, and I stayed in a bed and breakfast. And so I did have some poems from Steele's Used Bookstore and a lot of poems actually, but they had to be revised. And so this book, in each poem, I'm a different person. I'm Eve, I'm Puss in Boots, and I don't know, I couldn't decide who we should read tonight. So I think I'm going to start with the poem that inspired the title of the book. This one's called Boots, as in the constellation. There are gaps here I can't account for, paper ones on the floor, under the kitchen table, spilled out of the hole punch, stuck to the soles of my shoes. Kids are playing with guns for fun. Shoot till you're the last one standing. Why would this game work? What about the game where we add one and add one more again? I take my son outside to look at the stars. So much ink, so little paper, like the words in the student essays from the college. inscribed from the dust of Congo, Iraq, Ghetto. So many wars hum on the radio as I drive over the Buck O'Neill Bridge. Like so many grackles on the roof of the flower shop, they flutter over Broadway, aimed under a tufted sky, like punched out holes, as black as the dark between stars. Dark, where I just want some light. Sure, stars still shine on my back porch, and they have something to say. Boots broods there. Strange cowboy with his dogs behind him. He doesn't recognize his mother because she's turned into a bear. If there's one thing I want, it's for my children to recognize me. I want them to plow a new land, in whose gaps they plant little seeds of expectation. I'm a mother bear who lost her dark stripes. Only the whites are now visible, of my eyes hidden behind lids of pots and pans and supper plates. And the hairs under my chinny chin aren't enough to hold me here when the wolf has blown away my dark words, my pages empty of their ink. Why did we never go to see summer stars? Only Boots and his walk with the hounds in the deep plum-colored cold. What if I took that sweet flesh back, the dark back of my name, the indifferent scars, those cold black skies, and poured them into this bottle? Would I have enough ink to tell this story over? If you break the heart of a poet, she'll write a poem about it. If you mistreat a poet, a whole book might need to be written. But if you steal the love of a poet and crush it under your boots, take the poet's words and tear the weft out of them, turn the poet against herself until she ties a gag over her mouth and forgets her own name. Then, and only then, you too will be judged by the stars. Not because poems were lost or never written, but because a poet was lost, and so too the stars. When she returns, who will be able to bear the words she has to say? There will be constellations. All right. All right, so that's a tough one. So that's the one that started my book, but the other ones are more fun. I have one here called Wolf Talk. Looks like we have time for maybe two more. Okay. Okay. So, all right, we'll read the Wolf Talk one. It's interesting. Okay. I couldn't quite decide. The wolf came home. The wolf came home wearing his usual sheep's clothing and a cardigan, carrying plastic flowers and wearing grandma's cap. He stood under an Eden light, and with those glasses he was handsome. But Red Riding Hood suspected something. He sat down to dinner and immediately complained. Her eyes were too weak to see the eggshells she left in the omelet. I have new glasses, Wolf, the better to see you with. Your ears then are dimming, the wolf explained. He hadn't said eggshells. He'd clearly said pepper, because the dinner was too hot. Last week, I had a wise chipmunk check my ears. Red pulled a script from her pocket. He said I have the hearing of a 16-year-old, the better to hear you with. The duck told me so. After dinner, they cleared the dishes for Red Riding Hood to wash later. She tried to tell about her day with the mice and the magic pumpkin growing in the yard. The wolf pointed out surely she had the details wrong. Her memory was not what it used to be. Now you and I know, Red Riding Hood's memory was shot through with holes. I blame the wolf's teeth, biting her accidentally in the night. Red didn't eat much most days, living on rice and cabbage, sewing her own jacket and hood, mending with threads that kept breaking. In fact, Red Riding Hood knew her head was barely attached since the last time it had been knocked off. But that's where her secret weapon lay. You see, she'd been to town to a specialist. She'd had her memory tested by a wise old owl on the plaza. It cost a month's salary in baskets of fresh bread. She grabbed a folder of papers off the hall table, as green as grass in spring, and she waved the results, a white flag, proud as a banner. Good news! I had a wise old owl run tests. I have a 97% memory, but better to remember who you really are and what kind of teeth you show. She handed him the note from the doctor. Out of 100 women my age, I'm in the top 3% for memory. She put a hand on the wolf's shoulder. I'm not blind. I'm not deaf or dumb. I'm just me. I'm just a girl who used to wear a red scarf, and I'm going to put it back on today. The wolf said nothing. It was as if an axe had fallen to his door, like he'd been tied and gutted, like he had rocks in his stomach. He sort of disappeared after that. No one knew what happened to him. The neighbor said he'd never kept his yard clean, made Red Riding Hood do it, and the woodland creatures. Except for her brother, the woodsman, and grandmother, who showed up the next day, I'm not sure anyone ever heard of him again. They stayed together quite happily for some time, and they may be together there still. Thank you. Well, I see Melanie there. Melanie Milker and I, the reason I had so many poems to work with for this book was because we'd been getting together and having poetry sessions where we would have prompts and we'd write together. The other reason I had so many poems is because I would post them on a blog and save them, and it would sort them all by topic. So it was a really great way to get this book done. I don't know. I think we're at the end of our time though. So is that the last one?
Well, you said you had two more. I think you could do one more if you want.
Okay, I've got one more. Let me pick a good one here at the back. I'll read a nice, happy one. I hear somebody laughing in the other room. There's a lot of happy ones in here. And I write one every year for Easter, which has been my my habit for 20 years. That's the only reason I kept writing poetry. I would write one poem a year. And the other reason I kept writing poetry was because the Johnson County Library asked for poems, you know, and I kept sending them out and getting rejected. But I sent one there and it got accepted. And I thought, oh, the library loves me. I'm going to keep writing poems. So thanks to the library and groups like this, I kept writing poetry. I think it takes poets to keep each other going. Okay, so this one's called Prayer Knots. There's a special kind of Buddhist prayer about compassion. First, you make a picture of ashes, because prayer is when you come to the end, but you have just enough spark left for half a beginning. Second, make a picture of a knot, one knot, because after you come to the end of yourself and you try to pray, you won't really begin praying until you think of just one other person that you care about. Throw your lasso and tie a knot around their name. Third, make 2 or 3 knots, because if you can pray for one person, you may think of another person or group you want to pray for, a house, a town, a city, a planet, a tree, a forest, a river. You will think of something you wish was better, happier, more peaceful, and you will say, surely they deserve better. Surely they deserve health, wholeness, happiness, family, love, restoration, fairness, so tie a knot for them. Last, make a picture of a smooth road or a long ladder, because prayer goes both ways. Someone has been pulling you the entire time, helping your coming and going. You're not alone. You will see your enemy is just someone's child. Your friend has found a family. The artist has found someone to hear their story. The sick person is made well. And most of all, you have been rescued. And when you stand up again, you're not ashes. You are a small light. And now the path is open for you to walk again. Thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you. That was great. That concludes our reading. Everyone feel free to hang around for a bit and chat if you want. Take yourselves off mute. Don't forget, a week from tonight, the Writer's Place reading series at 7 p.m. and then the next Riverfront, December 4th. Thanks, everyone.